Crash Bandicoot, one of the gaming icons born in the 1990s with the original PlayStation. After a few years and a few bad games, he disappeared. But then, in 2017, he was back in Crash Bandicoot N-SANE Trilogy for the PlayStation 4. My one wish at the time of its initial release was that it came out on Nintendo Switch. But I understood why that this would have been an impossibility. You have to remember that when these first three came out, they were exclusive for PlayStation 1. Crash was a rival to Mario, so there was no way that this was going to make it to the modern day competitor, to the PlayStation 4. And then, boom. In 2018, the game made it to Steam, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch. Finally, the first three Crash games are on a Nintendo home console for the first time ever. And finally, here is my review. I played a bit of the original version of Crash when I was younger. I was never any good at these games, so it was no surprise that I wasn't that good at these either. Unlike the original versions of the first two games, you can use the joystick to move Crash around, as well as the directional buttons on your Joy-Con controllers. This may sound biased, but I prefer the joysticks on the Joy-Con controllers to the PS4 controllers. The PS4 ones feel so cheap compared to the Switches. The PS3 controllers were better than the PS4s too, because with that controller, you knew where the start button was. Anyway, back to the N-SANE Trilogy. Apart from my misgivings about how you control Crash, regardless of console, the physics have somewhat been changed. Now, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I know that some will actually prefer the original PS1 versions compared to the remastered versions of these three games. So, if you do, then fair enough, I guess. Visually, this game looks impressive, even in handheld mode. I believe that the loading time takes less time on the Nintendo Switch as well compared to a PS4 version. If you compare the N-SANE Trilogy to how these games originally looked, then you can see clearly that after 20 years the graphics just took a huge step up. I always hated the save feature on the original version of Crash Bandicoot 1, but now it's a million times better. Out of the three, this is the most improved game, because now it has additional content, and I believe that the changes which were made to this are the most significantly for the better. It doesn't stop me from dying a stupid number of times. I always hated that Road to Nowhere stage. It's also in this game where an additional level, Stormy Ascent, was added. This is also the case for Crash Bandicoot Warped, in which an unused level was made for the release of N-SANE Trilogy. This was supposed to be in the PS1 versions, but for some reason or another it never made it. But now it's here in all its full glory, and let me tell you, Stormy Ascent, if you value your mental state, then please, for the love of God, stay away from this. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back is an odd one for me. Once again, the graphics look gorgeous, but I don't think I ever preferred this to Crash 1. I didn't really like the levels as much, and admittedly, I had more of a hard time beating this game. I got an unbelievable amount of game overs for this. I suppose if I played it for days on end, my thoughts on this may be more positive. But for me, Cortex Strikes Back suffers from that common sequel curse. It's not a terrible game by any means, but I much prefer Crash Bandicoot 1, and I feel that it benefited more from the changes. I know that there will be some out there who will probably think that Cortex Strikes Back got the most beneficial treatment, and if you do, then fair enough, but personally, I don't see it. Finally, Crash Bandicoot Warped. I think got the least treatment in this HD makeover, but that doesn't matter. It's still a load of fun. I think this is arguably the most accessible of the lot, and it's not too challenging. I find myself not dying as much in this one. I think this one always had the best level design, hence why it had the least treatment out of the trilogy. Originally, this game introduced the time trials, which you replayed levels to earn relics. In the N-SANE Trilogy, All three of the games now have this, which is a nice addition. Crash Bandicoot N-SANE Trilogy is how I think a remake should be done. Despite being graphically inferior to the PS4 version, the Switch version is a perfect port of the game, especially since you can play this anywhere on the go. It is one of the highlights of the ever-growing Nintendo Switch library. It is one that I think you should definitely consider picking up.